chocolatier, chocolate maker, and manager. So Nancy has been making chocolate since 2007, and she took a class with Terry Richardson of Richardson Researches and fell in love with the product and process. She started the Oakland Chocolate Company after taking the class. After retiring from politics, Nancy bought her own space for chocolate making. She sold at farmers markets and retailers, and since COVID, she now sells via her website and to order only. She has won many awards from the San Francisco International Chocolate Salon, TCV, for her confections. Everyone, please give a warm welcome to Nancy.
Thank you so much. And really, thank you for inviting me to tell you a little bit about chocolate today. I really learned about, I mean, I always loved eating chocolate, of course, but I learned about chocolate and how it grows from the farmers in Jamaica when I had my last vacation with my husband and daughter before he passed away. We had a short vacation there. And the people were so nice, I kept going back. And then I met some chocolate farmers and learned a little bit more about how it grows, which I will now share with you. So, oops, wrong one. My arrows are supposed to be doing this. Yikes. Oh, okay. So you'll learn how chocolate grows, how a chocolate maker buys cocoa beans, how the Oakland Chocolate Company's manufacturing space looks, and how to buy chocolate ethically. This is a cocoa bean that has been germinated and is starting to grow. It takes about 5 years for a chocolate tree to grow and start producing at its maximum. And then it produces for quite a while. It's really very interesting how it grows. You'll see the branch of a chocolate tree towards the left of the screen. There's something tied onto it that you can disregard. But in the photograph, you can see little tiny flowers and little tiny things that look almost like a miniature corn. The flowers are what comes first on the branch, often even on the trunk of the tree. It grows a lot like jackfruit. I don't know if you've ever been in the tropics and saw jackfruit grow, but often these fruits in the tropics will grow out of the trunk as well as the branches. So a little crack forms and the flower comes out, and if a little bug pollinates that flower, then a pod starts to form. And that's how it looks when it gets a little bigger. It's still not a mature pod. And then once it's mature, it looks like that. It's between about 8 and 12 inches. It can be purple, red, orange, yellow, lots of different colors. Different kinds are different colors. Most of the chocolate that grows in the Caribbean is called Trinitario. It's a hybrid of something called Criollo and Forastero. Criollo was a little more subject to disease, so they made a hybrid that would be a stronger plant to grow. Here you see a friend of mine in Jamaica open the pod. This is what the pod looks like inside. And inside it are about 40 cocoa beans in a white creamy substance. Here you can see the white creamy substance in the pod on the top. The bottom one was a little too ripe. But you want it to look like the one at the top. That white creamy stuff is very full of sugars, very sweet. Kids love to suck on it, as do rodents, unfortunately. That's really what's the worst pest on a cocoa farm. And that branch that you saw with something attached to it in a few pictures back, this one, the branch is filled with rat. It's not a rat poison, because you don't want poison if you're trying to do an organic garden. An organic farm. It's got cement in it, like powdered cement, and if the rat eats it, then they get very thirsty and they run up some to get a drink, and then hopefully they won't eat your cocoa. So you can see here I cut one of the beans in half. And you can see the inside of it is purple when you first open it, purple with some white veins in it. And remember that, because that's significant later on for the presentation. When I first started to work with the Jamaican farmers, or to find out about how their system was working, I found out that the farmers had to sell their beans to the government. And since then, there's been some changes, not entirely ending that process, but some farmers still sell to the government. But they measure how much they're selling to the government by how many beans fill up a box like this. And they count all those boxes, and then they get paid by the amount of beans, the amount of boxes that they fill. It's made of a particular kind of wood that's found in Jamaica called guango wood, and it's used because it doesn't give off any odors or tastes, and it doesn't take on any. This is when you're, after you've harvested cocoa, in order for it to have a really great flavor, you have to ferment it and dry it. This is the government's fermentory. I think it's still operating. There are 7 boxes going back. You probably just see 1, 2, 3, maybe 4 or 5 here, but they're more closer to the person who took the picture. And it's an interesting design in that the slats between the boxes actually come out so that you can rake whatever in the first box into the second box. And the practice is to fill the first box with beans because it's such a big chunk of beans and it's got all those sugars. It gets hot by itself, all by itself, and it starts to ferment what's inside the bean. The reason you rake it into the next box the next day is to make sure that all the beans get the same amount of oxygen contact and also stay inside the bunch, the mass, so that they all get equally heated up. This is another design of fermentary boxes that the Jamaican Cocoa Farmers Association was building for some of the smaller farmers, where they would put it in the first box and second and third and then go back in the other direction. But it would take up less room than the number of boxes in the fermentary. This is the farmer that I deal with now. His name is Desmond Jadusingh. He did a cascading array of fermenting boxes because it works very well on the topography of his land. He can load the top box, and by the time it gets to the bottom, it's flat there and easy for him to carry those beans to his drying facility. This is the back side of that other, remember the fermentary. You see the metal grate there. This is the back side of that. And these looks like boards between the two gentlemen are drawers that come out, and they can dry the beans on those drawers in the sun. If it's not a sunny day, they have a facility where they can dry the beans inside using heat and a conveyor belt, but it's better if they dry outside in the sun. This is what they look like when they're dried out in the sun. When I went there and was talking to cocoa farmers, they were telling me how the system wasn't working very well. The government was not paying them in a timely way. They wasn't paying them very well. And so I thought, well, let's come together and see if you have ideas on a better way to do it. I can have somebody talk about cooperatives, and I also brought a professor from the University of West Indies to talk about organic ways of pest control. And we had a meeting. These are some of the farmers who came to the meeting. On the right is Professor Dwight Robinson from the university, and the gentleman with that great hat has since passed away, but they were a great bunch of people. And they listened carefully. They said they had tried a cooperative approach where they would go all as a group, go to each other's farms and help to prune, because that's really outside of reaping. What you really have to do all year long is prune, because it's a very damp and rich, well, it's very damp weather, so a lot of bush grows up around the bottom of the trees, and you have to cut that away as quickly as possible. So sometimes they would have people who didn't work very hard. They would want you to come to their farm, and then they wouldn't come to your farm to help. So they felt very wary about the co-op idea. Well, I decided then I would take a class in chocolate making, and what I could do would be to help them get their chocolate better known. So this is me at the very front. I don't have a, can you see it, my cursor? You can. Okay, that's me. This is the teacher, Terry Richardson. This young woman is Mindy Fong. She's still making chocolate. I think a lot of these folks are making chocolate still. She's just opening a cafe in Chinatown on Grant Avenue. So her company is called Jade Chocolates. And she's not a chocolate maker, she's a chocolatier. Chocolate maker makes chocolate from beans. I think she uses Guittard, which is a sustainably sourced chocolate. In one of the classes, they showed us this machine. It's not really a machine, it's a tool. It's called a Magra. It's very expensive. I have one here. You can see it. I bought it. It's for the person who buys chocolate, cocoa beans from a farm. You can see there are little cavities. You put the bean in there, and then you close the thing up like a book, and you have a guillotine that slices them in half. So you can see these beans. Most of them have been cut in half. Some of them were too flat to get cut. But you see they're nice, brown, rich color, just like chocolate. And you remember what it looked like when we first got it out of the pot. It was purple. Now it's a rich brown color. And you use this for negotiating with the farmer who you're going to buy the beans from, or in the past it was with the government. If you have 75% of the beans looking good and none of them are purple, or the rest of them are purple, then you can lower the price a little bit and negotiate according to how well fermented they are. These are the beans I first bought from the government. And this fellow was the executive director of the Cocoa Industry Board, which controlled everything. He was not very easy to contact, but eventually I was able to buy beans from him. And these are this is the first load of beans that came to my place that I was renting. Doug, you mentioned the space that Barlavento used to have. I used to rent a space from them. And it was a very exciting day to get my first ton of beans. You have to buy by the ton, so it's quite a commitment. And then as soon as I got off the city council, excuse me, I was able to buy a space. The reason it took, I had to wait, was that most of West Oakland was a redevelopment area. And as a council member, I couldn't buy a space in the redevelopment area. It was considered a conflict of interest. But I found this space about 5 minutes from my house. It's the last building before Emeryville starts in West Oakland. It's right, sort of right behind Target. It's about 1,400 square feet. And there's another room in the front, but this is the appliance and grinding room. You can see the freezer and the refrigerator. You can't see much of the else. The grinders are all the way on the, oops, these are some grinders here on the shelf. And then this is where I make most of the chocolate. The size of the kitchen kept getting smaller and smaller because the requirements from the state and the local government are, if you're going to invest a certain amount in developing your kitchen, you have to have it be handicapped accessible, even though I'm the only one who works there. So I had to make a very large bathroom where somebody in a wheelchair could spin around. And the state doesn't allow you to open your bathroom into the kitchen, which is reasonable. So you have to have another room in between that's also large enough to spin around a wheelchair. So my kitchen isn't quite as big as I had hoped it would be, but it's been working very well. This is a finishing room where I do the decorating and packaging. And this is the room where I keep the finished products until they're ready to be sold. Notice there's air conditioning in all of them. This again is the the farmer I buy my beans from, Desmond Jadusingh. His farm is called Bachelors Hall. It's been in his family for many years. It was his grandfather's. The government took it from his grandfather. I never could understand why. And then he had to buy it back from them. But he just loves his land. He takes really good care of it. He's got a lot of water. You can see some of the water here. Beautiful, clean water, constantly flowing. It's in the eastern part of the island. I think he's got about 300 acres. and he's constantly expanding and pruning more of the trees so that he can increase his productivity. So these are the beans that I got from him. Again, you have to buy a ton at a time. That's what they look like. And the first thing you do, like, this looks very nice, but if you look at all of them, sometimes there might be some that are a little buggy. They might have some mold on them, and you don't want that to be further processed. So you have to pick those out by hand. And then the next step is roasting them. I use these roasters, so this is what I could afford for my shop. They don't have a lot of temperature controls. You either keep the door open, this thing on the bottom here pulls up and closes the space here. So you can have a hotter space, and I keep them closed when I'm roasting. And I roast for about 45 minutes at the temperature. This is like a redesigned rotisserie. It's done by a company called Cocoa Town. And it works well. The benefit of having more control over temperature is that you can tease out some different flavors from your cocoa beans. Sometimes you get a little more floral or fruity kind of flavor, which I would love to have, but at this point I can only afford these. The next step is winnowing the cocoa beans. They each have a little shell on them. This is a machine I bought a long time ago. I don't use it anymore because it wasn't very efficient. But you pour your beans into the receptacle, it cracks the bean, and then you have either you have both a blower and a vacuum that separates the shell from the bean, and you wind up with cocoa nibs, these beautiful roasted cocoa nibs. That machine that I was using in that last slide kept leaving too much shell in with the beans and too many beans in the shell, so it was very wasteful. Now I have another machine that a friend of mine built, actually a Jamaican-American fellow who lives in Oakland, using a design that he found online, and it works like a charm. This is typically what small chocolate makers use to grind the chocolate after it's winnowed and you have those nibs. You grind them with sugar and cocoa butter in a machine like this. The rollers are granite, and the bottom is granite as well. And I grind for 2 days, and it makes a very fine particle that's got a wonderful mouthfeel when you're ready to eat it. When you after you grind them, I put them in a mold, and they're about 20 ounces each when they're cooled, and they're solid after the grinding is over. The grinding keeps it molten. And I wait about 45 days for the flavors to really mature before I use it. Once it's ready to be used, it goes in a tempering machine, which that's what you're looking at here. It's a machine that keeps the chocolate melted at a particular temperature. If you can imagine, what those white plastic lawn chairs that fit into each other, imagine the hot chocolate has all those chairs sort of chaotically all over the place. Once you temper it, it's like lining up all those chairs so that they fit into each other. And it has when you get a well-tempered chocolate bar, it's shiny and it has a nice snap to it. And that's why we temper it, just for the appeal. It doesn't, if it's not tempered, it's not bad for you. It just doesn't look as nice, and it doesn't taste as nice, and it's not as firm. So I make bars like this, 80%. I make lots of different things. This one is a 1 ounce bar. And then I make truffles. Lisa showed you another box of truffles that I make every month. I make Jamaican cocoa tea, which is like our hot chocolate. This I wanted to show you because I made some pumpkin truffles using another Jamaican product. I try to use other Jamaican products in my chocolate. This is a pimento liqueur. They call what we call allspice, they call pimento. You can see the little, I keep pointing to the picture without my cursor. These are the allspice or pimentos. So I made a pumpkin truffle. And this is the classic box of the month that I do for some customers as well. I also have a tasting room. This was a group, they're self-organized to have enough room for 12 people. These were retired teachers who came one day, and I give them a tour of the kitchen. I give them some chocolate to taste, and then they get to take home some chocolate. It's $25 a person, I think. That's what I was charging. So the last thing I wanted to talk about is ethics and chocolate. And the reason I wanted to talk about that is that some of the big companies like Nestle and Hershey and Mars are buying chocolate from East African countries that use child slave labor to harvest. And I am appalled by that and think it's a terrible thing. I hope you agree with me. They are also, those companies also are constantly lobbying the federal government to change the Federal Register definition of chocolate so that it can have less chocolate in it and more fillers. So, in terms of big companies, the only one I really trust is Tard, and it's not huge, but at least it's local, and they do source very consciously. So what I would suggest is to read the label. If a company is really sourcing well, they would probably say directly traded on the label. There's one company in St. Louis called Ashkenazi that actually puts a picture of the farmer on their label. They're a wonderful company, and the chocolate is terrific. So if you get a chance to taste Ashkenazi, they're also very active in their St. Louis community, providing jobs and training to young people. So please, look at the label. Don't just buy whatever is right there. Look on the websites to see how they're paying their farmers. Sometimes they even have a price on there of how much they paid the farmer. And the important thing for that is to make sure that the farmer can keep providing us with cocoa beans. Another way that things are changing so that we can assure that the farmer makes a fair wage and can support his or her family, is to support the Cross-Atlantic Chocolate Collective. This is a really interesting new project, very new project of small chocolate farmers in many African countries and in Caribbean countries who have joined the collective to learn how to make chocolate themselves. They sold their first sample box, which was a beautiful box, I thought. And it has 12 samples in it from the different countries. And they are all learning how to make chocolate. And so, some of it is delicious, some of it needs a little work. They came with a wonderful photograph of all the farmers. Let's see if I can hold it up. I don't know if you can see it, but it was just charming. And they had a Zoom meeting, a Zoom tasting, so that everybody could actually see who had made each of the samples. The samples were a pretty nice size, this big, and the whole box, I think, for the 12 samples was $100 and $25 for shipping, which isn't too bad, and you know that you're supporting a good cause. Some of the farmers who are chocolate makers as well in the Caribbean countries, like the fellow that I know from Jamaica, has a little more money, and he has sent some grinding machines to somebody in the Cameroon so that he can have the equipment that's needed. So you can find them on Instagram, and they often have tastings and other interesting talks with farmers online. So that's about it. I'm sorry I don't have a way to get you samples. But if you are interested in chocolate, we have a very safe way to sell it. People come on Fridays and pick it up in the vestibule. I need to know in advance what it is so I can make it, because right now I'm not doing the farmers markets anymore, so I don't keep a lot in inventory. I do a lot of things to order. So if you're interested in checking out our chocolate, that's the website, and I'm happy to answer any questions you might have.
A question that relates to our club, which is that when you showed the teachers, that looked like Betty McKeady in that picture, who is a retired teacher who used to be in our club. Do you know?
I don't remember their names. I'm sorry. It was a while.
Okay. I think that's who she was. She was a career teacher.
They were a wonderful group.
Out of the Yeah, she's moved out of the area. So she's got good taste.
Well, we recognize who was across the table from them as well. Across the table from her, I should say. That was you.
All right.
I do have a question for you, Nancy. You identified East Africa. The two largest producing countries for cocoa are Cote d'Ivoire and Ghana.
Right.
Are
Those are the ones
they-
that have the child slave labor.
Is that uniform across all of those countries? Because there,
Chocolate grows 20 degrees above and below the equator. So, there'll be a strip of countries across the continent that produce. But the ones that are most known for this child slave labor are Cote d'Ivoire and Ghana. There is a member of the collective, of the Cross Atlantic Collective, that's from Ghana. So they are, they would be another company to buy from, where you would know that I don't have their, I don't think I have their name listed here. Let me see if I have that. No, it just has the woman's name, Jean Dancourt. I don't have the company name. But I know that they are from Ghana because they had a video on the Instagram a site that showed how they do their kitchen, and it's actually quite a little bit nicer than mine. but yeah, so
Can you-
you just have to be careful to see not only where it's from, but if it has any other information about direct trade.
Which one is the best?
can you tell the difference in quality? I mean, is there a difference in quality from cocoa that comes from Jamaica versus what comes from Africa?
Well, most of what's in Africa is forastero, and it's not, there's different kinds of chocolate. Some is called fine flavored. Forastero is not necessarily fine flavored. In Jamaica, they do have fine flavored chocolate, but it's fine flavored if you ferment it right away, like you're supposed to. If you make mistakes along the way, then you lose some of the flavor. So it really depends on how well they're doing the post-harvest processing. Of the new companies that I tasted from the box that I was showing you, the Cross Atlantic, I would say some of them I didn't like at all. They weren't very chocolatey. Some people assume that chocolate is going to taste chocolatey, which is certainly what I thought. But there are some wonderful chocolates that aren't, that wouldn't be the first word that you would choose to describe it. You might say fruity, or you might say nutty, or whatever. But I particularly, my favorite is to also be chocolatey as well as some of those other flavors. So I was looking for that. Certainly the fellow from Jamaica had a chocolatey flavor. There was a woman from Trinidad and Tobago who had her brand is called Sun Eaters, and hers was chocolatey. And there were, the ones from the African countries weren't as chocolatey at all. So you develop your own flavors and what you flavor taste, and see what you like.
Frank, you had a question?
Actually, I got several, but I'll try to make them brief. One, how many tons of beans do you go through
Well,
a year?
I'm really tiny, and I don't even pay myself. This is my retirement gig. I'm doing it for the love and to help the farmers get their stuff better known. So I don't know if I'm not really the best judge. It took me a few years to get through a ton.
Got it.
But other companies will get through it really fast. So it depends upon what your production is.
And I noticed that yours is 80% cocoa.
That bar was 80%. The little bar was 70%. I typically make my ganache, which is what goes inside a truffle, out of a 60%. And what that means is 80% means it's 20% sugar and 80% chocolate and cocoa butter.
Got it.
And that together. And I don't put anything else in it. I don't use vanilla. I don't use lecithin. A lot of people use lecithin, but I don't use that either because some people are allergic to it and it has a funny taste.
Got it. Thank you. I'll come back later.
Right, Lisa? Let me unmute you.
Other questions?
One.
Go ahead. Go ahead,
Say it
Lisa.
I don't think you've told us how many awards you've won with your chocolate.
Well, I've lost track. No, I'm sort of winding down on even submitting stuff. But I have gotten a lot of awards from the San Francisco International Chocolate Salon. I haven't really submitted to anyone else. I did just submit to the Academy of Chocolate in London, but I don't expect to win anything there. I just wanted to get mine in there. The competition, the international competitions are very competitive because there are a lot of really excellent chocolate makers out there, especially amongst the small folks who are my size are a little bit larger, but some folks are making some really wonderful stuff. So experiment. I'm trying to think of where you can find things, find a variety of chocolate bars. I think there might be a place on College Avenue. Bittersweet used to be there that had a nice variety of bars from different places. I don't really have many retailers. I'm terrible at marketing, but I sell at the downtown wine merchants, and there's a woman in Alameda who has a chocolate tasting that she sends out different bars from different companies that you might be interested in. It's called Cocoa Case, and she buys some of mine. There was a Fog City in San Francisco that sold a lot of different bars. There's another chocolate store in Noe Valley on 24th Street that has a variety of bars from different companies. But most of the places that you go to, there was a Michael's on Lakeshore. I'm not sure, but he just sells his own chocolate. So, it's hard to find an array of different kinds of chocolate to sample among. That's why Cocoa Case is nice, because they give you different ones to sample. Anything else?
Are you back to hosting tastings? And if so, what's the process for scheduling something like that?
I haven't, I've been so protective of my health and others that I haven't had people inside my space at all during this COVID time. I guess I better get over that and invite people in. I have room for 12 people. I asked them to self-organize because it's hard for me to have the time to find people to come all at the same date. So if you have 12 people you want to bring, if it's somewhere between 10 and 12, less than that, it's a lot of work for me and not it doesn't really pay. So getting in touch with me and finding a mutually agreeable date is the best way to do it, and you could do that through the website.
Great.
Thank you.
Oh, go ahead, Fred.
If there's not another wave of COVID, I'll do it for sure. I guess I can have a process of checking people's vaccinations and trying to be really careful, but it's more important for me to be healthy than to promote that part of my business at this point.
So after all this time of doing, making chocolate, do you get tired of the smell and the taste? I mean, do you kind of like go, okay, enough with the chocolate?
I don't. It's I've been doing it since 2007, and I don't. I don't eat a lot of it myself. I have at least a little piece every day, but I don't eat more than that. And the smell is wonderful. It's just really, I can't say that it would ever bother me. People come into my kitchen and say, "Oh God, it smells so good," and I don't always smell it as strongly as they do, but it does smell good.
Oh, Armando has a question.
Do you do very much like experimenting still, or now that you've been doing it for so many years, you have a pretty good idea of your process and always kind of make the same things?
Process-wise, I pretty much have it down. I try to make a new flavor every month, and I have since I began. Some of them, are duds. Some of them are fabulous, and I keep making them. But I do make a new flavor every month, and I don't know what I'm going to do for April yet. So you have any good ideas, I'm open.
Does that mean you take special requests?
I'm always interested in people's ideas. If you have an idea, absolutely. Most of my orders now are orders, special orders for people, based on my line, they look at what I have on the website and they pick and choose from that. But sometimes I'll make something that's not on the website that somebody, like a particular bar with some kind of inclusion in it that they don't see, or I'm happy to try something new. But process-wise, the only thing I'd really like to do differently is to get a different kind of a roaster so that I could have a little more play with the temperatures. But I just got a little oven, so I've started to make some gluten-free treats. Lisa often buys these gluten-free graham crackers with caramel on them, and then they're dipped in chocolate. I also make some cupcakes for one of my customers every week. He comes and buys chocolate cupcakes. But I tend to do just gluten-free baked goods because people who have a gluten problem don't want regular flour in the kitchen. Just like I don't use peanuts in my kitchen either because of allergies.
Can you
So no peanut suggestions.
can you share a little bit about, like your transition into being part of city council and like kind of what drew you to kind of start your own like
well, when you're in government, as much as I wanted everyone to love me, they didn't. And when you give someone a piece of chocolate, they do. So maybe that was why I did it. I don't know. It's definitely a different reaction from being a policymaker. I wanted something that would make people happy and make me happy as well. I'm a maker kind of a person. I have a long history of being of having many careers as a geophysicist, as a teacher, but as an artist before that. But all that time I was always making something. I either crochet or whatever. So being a maker makes me very happy. I'm always happy in the kitchen. I've got music on, and it's just me and music and chocolate. What could be bad?
nice.
Anything else?
Any other?
One quick question, Ghirardelli Square. As you know, they have a little warehouse here, or in San Leandro, I believe. What in terms of the quality there, what are your thoughts?
I don't really know where they source their chocolate from, so I'm not and they don't say that where they source it from. So I'm wary. I don't utilize their chocolate. I know Guittard sources responsibly, and they're close by too. They're in San Mateo, I think, and they're very active in the fine chocolate. I'm a member of this association. I can't remember the name of it.
Fair trade.
Fine Chocolate Industry Association, that would be the FCIA. They're very active. They support that organization, and they're just as I mentioned that the big guys like Mars and Nestle and Hershey are lobbying the government to change the definition of chocolate. They're on the other side. They're lobbying the other way to keep chocolate pure and to make sure that it's sourced sensibly and sustainably. So going for if you want another company, a larger company, I would go with Guittard and look for where they are selling their chocolate. I don't know. Ghirardelli does not say where they get their cocoa beans from. And I don't even know if they're making it themselves from beans. I really don't know about their process. I haven't been to their facility.
What are your thoughts about Ocho Candy, one of your neighbors?
Oh, they closed.
Ocho closed?
Yeah, they moved. They didn't close. They moved. I think they moved to Texas. I'm not sure. They definitely moved out of state because I had a friend who worked there.
It's surprising. I not only know Barlavento, but I know Scott Kucerek from Ocho. So it's a small chocolate world.
Yeah. They made a different kind of a product. They were more like going for a Snickers kind of a bar. or the-
Novelty
They
and
use
novelty chocolates, yeah.
Yeah, it was organic products though, which is good, but I don't know where they got their chocolate from either.
Between Frank and Doug, I get the sense that you have some chocolate experts in this crowd. I think Frank was actually looking to see if you needed an employee, particularly at cleaning things up, but that one with the chocolate in it. But it sounds like we've got some experts in this crowd.
I'm glad you're all interested in that, and especially you're interested in buying sustainably and ethically. I think that's very important.
Well, Nancy, thank you so much for taking the time to join us. I know it's kind of a cold email, but with the connection with Lisa, I'm glad we're able to kind of share your experience and kind of just why you're doing what you're doing and sourcing single origin Jamaican cocoa beans. So as a thank you to you and your time for speaking to us, we are going to be donating some vaccines in your name, and not just any vaccines. Polio vaccines. Because of our Rotary's commitment to ending polio now, we'll be donating some of those vaccines in your name as a thank you.
Wow, that's wonderful. Thank you so much. I know I'm very concerned about access to COVID vaccines in Jamaica because I have so many friends there, and they didn't have a lot available. I know they got some vaccines from Cuba, but there's a lot of controversy about how well other countries are doing just in terms of access. So I appreciate whatever you're doing in the health field, and thank you so much.